On December 7, 1947, Abhay wrote to Gandhi from Kanpur. Gandhiji was living at the Birla Mansion in Delhi, where large military forces throughout the city discouraged Hindu-Muslim rioting. Gandhi's secretary, Pyarelal Nair, described Gandhi at this time as the quote, the saddest man one could picture, unquote. The man he had led in the struggle for Indian independence, Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, and others, had taken the leadership of the nation. And Gandhi, with his doctrines of nonviolence, unity, and agrarianism, was now at odds with them in many ways. He feared he was becoming an anachronism. His former colleagues admired him but rejected his leadership. Somebody has unmuted the phone. Oh, Rajvidya Prabhu from India. Welcome, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for joining. His former colleagues admired him but rejected his leadership. All his program, Hindu-Muslim unity, non-violence, upliftment for the poor, although praised throughout the world, were failures in India of 1947. On a recent visit to a Muslim refugee camp, a crowd of Muslims who surrounded his car had cursed him, and at a public prayer meeting, a Hindu crowd had shouted him down and ended his meeting when he had attempted to read from the Quran. At 78 years, Gandhi was physically weak. In all likelihood, Abhay's letter would never reach him. Abhay knew it. Sending a letter to Gandhi would be like putting a note in a bottle and sending it to sea. It would arrive in the flood of mail, and Gandhi would be too busy to see it. But Abhay sent it nonetheless. He wrote, Prabhupada wrote, like, Dear friend Mahatmaji, please accept my respectful namaskar. I'm your unknown friend, but I had to write to you at times, and again, although you never care to reply them. I sent you my papers, quote, back to Godhead, unquote. But your secretaries told me that you have very little time to read the letters and much less for reading the magazines. I asked for an interview with you, but your busy secretaries never care to reply this. Anyway, as I'm your very old friend, although unknown to you, I'm writing to you in order to bring you to the rightful position deserved by you. As a sincere friend, I must not deviate from my duty toward a friend like your good self. What a wonderful letter Prabhupada wrote. I tell you as a sincere friend that you must immediately retire from active politics if you do not desire to die an inglorious death. Haribol. Prabhupada predicted. You have 125 years to live as you have desired to live. But if you die in an inglorious death, it is no worth. The honor and prestige that you have obtained during the course of your present lifetime were not possible to be obtained by anyone else within the living memory. But you must know that all these honors and prestiges were false in as much as they were created by the illusory energy of Godhead called the Maya. By this falsity, I do not mean to say that your so many friends were false to you, nor you were false to them. By this falsity, I mean illusion, or in other words, the false friendship and honors obtained thereby were but creation of Maya, and therefore they are always temporary or false, as you may call it. But none of you, neither your friends nor yourself, know this truth. A sadhu is not supposed to flatter but to cut. This is the basic of his friendship, that he cuts away the illusion of the materialistic person. Mahatma Gandhi, forsaken by his friends, bitterly disappointed at the outcome of the long, hard struggle for Indian independence, and apprehensive about the future, had been reduced to a position in which he might be able to realize that his friends and work were ultimately illusory. Thus, it was the perfect time for him to comprehend Abhay's message. Now, by the grace of God, that illusion is going to be cleared, and thus your faithful friends like Acharya, Kripalini, and others are accusing you for your inability at the present moment to give them any practical program of work as you happen to give them during your glorious days of non cooperation movement. So you are also in a plight to find out a proper solution for the present political tangle created by your opponents. You should therefore take a note of warning from your insignificant friend like me that unless you retire timely from politics and engage yourself 100% in the preaching work of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the real function of the Mahatmas, you shall have to meet with such inglorious death as Mussolini Hitler or Lloyd George met with. Prabhupada was really clear. For years, Abhay had wanted to approach Mahatma Gandhi with this message. In fact, he had written before, although it had been of no avail. But now he was convinced that unless Gandhi got out of the politics, he would soon die an inglorious death. That Gandhi was remaining active in politics rather than preaching devotional service put him in need of a warning. Abhay was writing to save his friend. You can easily understand as to how some of your political enemies, in the garb of friends, both Indian and English, have deliberately cheated you and have broken your heart by doing the same mischief for which you have struggled so hard for so many years. You wanted chiefly Hindu Muslim unity in India, and they have tactfully managed to undo your work by creation of the Pakistan and India separately. You wanted freedom for India, but they have given permanent dependence of India. You wanted to do something for the upliftment of the position of the Bangis, but they are still rotting as Bangis even though you are living in the Bhangi colony. They are all therefore illusions, and when these things will be presented to you as they are, you must consider them as God sent. God has favored you by dissipating the illusions you were hovering in, and by the same illusion, you were nurturing those ideas as truth. Abhay dutifully attempted to inform Gandhi that there was nothing absolute within this relative world. Ahimsa or non-violence must always be followed by violence, just as light is followed by darkness. Nothing is absolute truth in the dual world. Quote, you did not know this, unquote, wrote Abhay. Quote, neither you ever care to know this from the right sources, and therefore all your attempts to create unity were followed by disunity, and ahimsa was followed by himsa. Haribol. Prabhupada is so straightforward. Abhay point out that Gandhi had never undergone the standard practice for spiritual advancement, namely accepting a bona fide spiritual master. Although Bhagavad Gita declares the necessity of accepting a guru in disciplic succession, Gandhi was well known for listening to his inner voice and for extracting ideas from various writers like Ruskin and Thoreau and mixing them with teaching from the New Testament and the Gita. Had Gandhi approached a guru, said Abhay, he would not have become bewildered within the sphere of relative truth. In the Katha Upanishad, it is ordered that one must approach the bona fide guru, who is not only well versed in all the scripture of the world, but is also the realized soul in Brahman, the Absolute, in order to learn the science of absolute truth. So also it is instructed in the Bhagavad Gita as follows. Tad vidhi pranipatena paniprashnena sevaya upadaksyanti te jnanam jnaninam tat darshina. 434. Over here they said tad vidhi, but it's tad vidhi. Anyway. But I know that you never underwent such transcendental teaching except some severe penances which you invented for your purpose, as you have invented so many things in the course of experimenting with the relative truths. So far out. You might have easily avoided them if you had approached the Guru as above mentioned. Recognizing Mahatma Gandhi's godly qualities and austerities, Abhay requested him to employ his moral elevation for surrendering to the absolute truth. Abhay urged him to get out of politics immediately. But your sincere effort to attain some godly qualities by austerities, etc., surely have raised you to some higher platform which you can better utilize for the purpose of the absolute truth. If you, however, remain satisfied with such temporary position only and do not try to know the absolute truth, then surely you are to fall down from the artificially exalted position under the laws of nature. But if you want really to approach the absolute truth and want to do some real good to the people in general all over the world, which shall include your idea of unity, peace, and non-violence, then you must give up the rotten politics immediately and rise up for the preaching work of the philosophy and religion of Bhagavad Gita without offering unnecessarily and dogmatic interpretation on them. So strong, huh? I had occasionally discussed this subject in my paper, quote, Back to Godhead, unquote, and a leaf from the same is enclosed herewith for your reference. I would only request you to retire from politics at least for a month only, and let us have discussion on the Bhagavad Gita. I'm sure thereby that you shall get a new light from the result of such discussions, not only for your benefit, but for the benefit of the world at large. As I know that you are sincere, honest, and immoralist, awaiting your reply with interest, yours sincerely, Abhay Charande. What a beautiful letter Prabhupada wrote to Mahatma Gandhi. And there was no reply. A month later, Gandhi announced that he would fast until death unless India made a payment of 550 million rupees to Pakistan, a previous condition of the partition agreement. Man, Haribol. At first, Gandhi refugees from Pakistan demonstrated outside Gandhi's darkened room, chanting, quote, let Gandhi die, unquote. But as he fasted, each day closer to death, he aroused the heartfelt concern of the nation, and the government leaders repaid the money to Pakistan. Then great crowd approached him chanting, quote, let Gandhi live, unquote. Meanwhile, Hindu-Muslim violence continued. On January 30, the day after he had drafted a new constitution for the Congress party, Gandhi took his evening meal, worked at his spinning wheel, then walked toward his evening prayer meeting and was shot 3 times in the chest. He died, crying out the name of God, Hey Ram. A voice later of the previous month suddenly read like a prophecy, but it had not been read by the person for whom it had been intended. Haribol. When the directors of the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial National Fund invited suggestions on how to commemorate Gandhi's life and work, Abhay wrote to them and simultaneously to Vallabhbhai Patel, India's Deputy Prime Minister, proposing the Gandhian way to use the funds. Gandhi's whole life was dedicated to the service of humanity at large, with special interest for raising the moral standard. His later activity showed that he was equal to everyone, and all the people of the world knew him more as a spiritual leader than mere politician. Devotion to Godhead was his ultimate aim. And when I say that his sacred memory should be perpetrated not in the ordinary way, but in the Gandhian way, I mean that fitting respect to his memory will be done in the following manner. Abhay wrote of a Mahatma Gandhi rarely described. Gandhi as a Vaishnava Despite his pressing political activities, Gandhi had never missed his daily prayer meeting in the evening. Even at the time of his assassination, he had been on his way to attend his daily kirtan. Abhay stressed that it was because of Gandhi's regular participation in congregational prayer that he had been strong in his work to raise the moral standard of humanity. Quote, Gandhiji minus his spiritual activities, unquote, Abhay wrote, quote, is an ordinary politician, but actually he was a saint among the statesmen. Abhay wrote that it had been Lord Chaitanya who had originated the congregational chanting of the names of Krishna and Ram, and his followers, the six Goswamis, had left a wealth of literature for discussion and understanding. The Memorial Fund Board should take this lesson from Mahatmaji's practical life and develop it on a large scale. Therefore, one fitting memorial to Mahatma Gandhi would be to institute daily congregational reading from the Bhagavad Gita. When people's spiritual instinct were kindled by daily prayer meeting, then they would develop the highest qualities in their character. So Abhay had a second suggestion. Gandhi was known for his attempt to enable the lower class to enter the temples. And in Nokhali, he had installed the deity of Radha and Krishna for the ordinary man to worship. Although this was generally taken as a side issue of Gandhi's work, Abhay took it as the essence. That Gandhi's was a theistic movement. Abhay explained that although there were hundreds and thousands of temples in India, they were not being properly managed, and therefore educated citizens were neglecting them. In the original Vedic culture, the purpose of the temples had been to nurture spiritual culture. If the temples of India could be reorganized as vital spiritual centers, then the disturbed mind of the day could be trained for life's higher duties. Quote, such education and practice, Abhay wrote, can help men in realizing the existence of God, without whose sanction, according to Mahatma Gandhi, not a blade of grass moves. There you go. Yeah, still we have some time. He also referred to Gandhi's Harijan movement, which most people saw as Gandhi's humanitarian effort to grant equal rights to untouchables, whom Gandhi had recognized as Harijan, people of God. Abhay stressed that this was also an essentially spiritual aspect of Gandhi's life. But rather than simply rubber stamping an untouchable as Harijan, Abhay argued there must be a systematic program for elevating people of the lower classes. This program was taught in the Bhagavad Gita and could best be applied under the guidelines of a bona fide devotee of the Lord. Abhay volunteered to take up the work on behalf of the memorial board. If the board, in attempting to commemorate Gandhi's effort and accomplishments, neglected the essential spiritual aspect of Gandhi's life, Abhay warned, quote, his memory will soon be dead as has been the lot of other politicians. Unquote. Perhaps they saw Abhay as another opportunist seeking money or as a sectarian religionist. But Abhay saw himself as a lonely servant of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, seeing certain Vaishnava qualities in the character of Mahatma Gandhi. Abhay took the opportunity to introduce his spiritual master message to the world, and by so doing, he paid tribute to Mahatma Gandhi, praising him as a great devotee interested in kirtan, temple worship, and elevating unfortunates to become people of God. While on business in Madurai, in South India, Abhay showed some of his writing to Muthuswami Chetty, another medical salesman. Mr. Chetty was impressed and felt he could persuade his wealthy friend, Dr. Alagappa, the famous Billa of the South, to finance the printing. In April of 1948, Mr. Chetty wrote to Abhay saying that he had been promoted to help Abhay for something God has meant. He asked Abhaycharan to send him the complete Gitopanishad manuscript so that he could present it to Dr. Alagappa in Madras. Mr. Chetty had already written Dr. Alagappa about the first class work Gitopanishad to cover 1200 pages of royal size and had urged him to publish it for the benefit of religious minded people. He had also mentioned that Abhay had been trying to publish the book since 1946. So Dr. Alagappa soon replied to Mr. Chetty that he was interested, and Mr. Chetty wrote to Abhay, quote, "So I am on my way to help you, and only God must help me." Unquote. As for talking business with Dr. Alagappa, there would be no need, since once he does it, it is for the sake of benevolence. Unquote. Anticipating success, Mr. Chetty invited Abhay to come to Madras to meet Dr. Alagappa. There, he will arrange for what God has meant for you to do in your religious duty. In Madras, Abhay would be able to check and correct the proofs of the manuscript and see the book through the various stages of printing. It was a big opportunity, and Abhay was not one to miss an opportunity. If the book could be published, it would be a great victory in his mission to fulfill the request of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. But then the worst thing happened. The manuscript was stolen, and it was the only copy that Abhay had it. The one Abhay was keeping safely at home. He questioned his family and servant. No one knew what had happened. Abhay was baffled. So much work had been undone. He felt he had worked so many months for nothing, although he couldn't prove anything. He suspected that his servant or even his son might have done it with a motive for raising money, but it remained a mystery. During 1949, Abhay wrote articles in Bengali and submitted them to his godbrother B.P. Keshav Maharaj, who published them in his Gaudiya Patrika. Abhay's format for addressing world problems was the same as his spiritual masters. Even at their first meeting in 1922, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had countered Abhay's nationalistic argument by stressing that the real crisis in the world was neither social nor political nor anything material, but was simply the dearth of transcendental knowledge. Abhay simply elaborated on this theme. He never advocated that the ordinary concerns of the world be disregarded, but he stressed that crisis can be solved only when the leadership is God conscious. If Krishna conscious were put first, other concerns could be brought into line. But without Krishna consciousness, so called solutions were only folly. So Abhay began his first Bengali article by quoting an editorial from the Allahabad edition of the Calcutta newspaper Amrit Bazar. The editor has sorely lamented that India's worst troubles had not yet ended despite national independence. The national week has begun. The memories of Jallianwala Bagh and political serfdom no longer trouble us. But our trouble is far from being at an end. In the dispensation of providence, mankind cannot have any rest. If one kind of trouble goes, another quickly follows. India, politically free, is faced with difficulties no less serious than those that trouble us under a foreign rule. Abhay seized on this editorial reflection as proof of the basic defect of the worldly plans for amelioration. He pointed out that although India had been subjugated by foreign rulers since the time of Muhammad Ghori, AD 1050, India prior to that had never been subjugated. In those days, India had been a God-conscious nation. It was when India's leader had abandoned their spiritual heritage that India had fallen. Thus, Indians should see that they were now being punished by the stringent laws of material nature. The Honorable Editor or Amrit Bazar Patrika, Abhay noted, has written so sadly, if one trouble goes, another quickly follows. But that was stated in the Bhagavad Gita a long time previously. It was the same theme he had stated in his 1944 Back to Godhead articles, and the theme of so many of his letters also. Man, due to his neglect of the Supreme Lord, is being punished by the material nature, which is directly controlled by the Supreme Lord. Man may write newspaper articles, pass measures at meetings and conferences, and attempt to overcome nature by scientific research, yet they will remain unable to surmount nature's law. As they try to escape their punishments, the Supreme Lord will cast them deeper into the illusion and they will fall miserably. Abhay quoted an appropriate Bengali saying, I was trying to make a statue of Shiva, but I ended up making a monkey. Unquote. Haribol. I think it's 6:42. The devotee has to get ready and come to the temple, so I think we should stop here. And before that, we would like to offer our humble obeisances at the desk of these wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. They are so kind to join every morning despite their busy household life. So we are really grateful for their dedication and pray to Krishna to bestow His mercy upon all of us so we can become enlightened. As we see in Prabhupada's life there, He can foresee so many things. When we purified our senses, we can see through the reality. So if we will strictly follow in the first step of Prabhupada, we will have those opportunity to serve the mankind also. So with those thoughts, I think let's offer our humble obeisances. Vancha kalpataruvasya kripa sindhu bhayavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you very much.